Hello, everyone. I'm Brittany Boyce with SEI, and I'm today's moderator. Welcome to Session 2 of SEI Career Path Series, Insights with Glenn Bell and SE Industry Leaders. As you entered today, you were muted and your video turned off. Please make sure to keep it that way for the entire session. This session is being recorded. If you have any questions, just ask them in the chat. And to get us started today is SEI Director Laura Champion.
Thank you, Brittany. Hi, I'm Laura Champion, the Director at SEI with American Society of Civil Engineers. I want to welcome everyone today for Session 2 of our Career Path Series, hosted by our current SEI President, Glenn Bell. The course is now, as SEI and ASE and all other organizations are shifting worldwide to virtual events, SEI is working hard to provide ways to engage you as members and connect with members, including this Career Path Series. And also, additionally, we're planning a brand new ASE virtual technical conference that will be the week of September 14th. There should be information coming to you tomorrow about that event. Please look for it. And important for the engagement in this particular Career Path Series is the live chat. This will enable you to network between your peers and also all the attendees. You can ask the questions for the presenters at the end of the session and also to ask any questions you have for the SEI staff. We also want some information about what's happening with you, so please access the poll by clicking on the poll icon at the bottom of your screen. The first poll results will be up shortly. And now it's my pleasure to introduce your host, SEI President Glenn Bell. Glenn is retired from Simpson Government Haggard after working for 45 years. He rose from the career of an entry-level engineer to CEO and board chair. And as a structural engineer, Glenn has worked on many iconic building projects as a structural engineer of record and also on engaged in investigations of structural failure. And during his 22 years as CEO of SGH, the firm has geographically grown and is also mentioned many times as one of the best structural engineering firms to work for. And so in addition to being the SEI president this year, Glenn is also the director of the CROSS US, which is Confidential Reporting on Structural Safety Program, which is in conjunction with the international program with UK. He's also on the board of the Charles Pankow Foundation and is currently serving as a visiting scholar at the University of Bath in the Civil and Architectural program in the United Kingdom. Glenn, it's my pleasure now to welcome you to the Session 2 of our Career Path Series.
Laura, thank you very much, and hello, everyone. This is Session 2 of our 4-part SEI Career Path Series. To those of you who were able to attend Session 1, thank you for participating and helping us make a great session, and welcome back. If you're tuning in for the first time today, we're sorry we missed you last time, but don't be concerned. Each of these 4 sessions is designed to stand alone in helping you manage your career path. So in Session 1, we explored the wonderful and rewarding world of possible career paths in industry, in consulting, in government, and education. In Sessions 2 through 4, we're going to follow sequential periods in career path development. So in this Session 2, we're going to cover the period from finding your first job after school through work as a project engineer. Our guests will offer their advice on finding your first job, considering whether to pursue graduate school, starting out, working your way through the first 3 to 5 years of your career. We'll cover questions like whether and how to pursue your PE. This is a critically important, informative period where there are a lot of career decisions to be made. And now we have some preliminary results from our entry poll. Thank you for participating. The vast majority of you are from industry and consulting, as I see, and a good fraction of you are still students. So that's great. And in terms of years of experience, a lot of students and fewer than 3 years. That demographic makes up about half of our audience here. And we have another half with 3 years and more. So that's a nice cross section. About a quarter of you have a PE, 4% an SE, and some have both. Many have neither, but are considering pursuing a PE or SE. So I imagine that will be a source of some discussion. A lot of you tuned in today because you're beginning your career and you're trying to determine what decisions you want to make, what sector you want to pursue. And some are very curious about not only the shorter term, but the longer term as well. So plenty of cross-section here and lots of fodder for good discussion, I'm sure. We'll have a great time. So with that, I'm delighted to introduce our guests, Cherylyn Henry and Fernando Martinez, the two outstanding and inspiring professionals who I've known for some time. Cherylyn Henry is a senior structural engineer and project manager with Zapata in Charlotte, North Carolina. She has a BS in architectural studies from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and also there an MA in the structures program. She also has a BS in civil engineering from Arizona State University. Cheryl leads the structures group at her firm and assists in business development. Her design experience with Zapata includes structural renovations and retrofits, risk analyses, and structural failure assessments. Previously, Cherylyn worked with T.Y. Lin, focusing on multi-span bridge design, load ratings, and feasibility studies. She currently serves on the ASCE Codes and Standards Committee and the SEI Chapter Resources Committee. She's also a voting member of the ASCE 7 Main Committee and vice chair of the Wind Load Subcommittee. In addition, Cherylyn volunteers as an urban search and rescue structure specialist during man-made and natural disasters, assisting the task force by performing structural assessments for victim recovery and rescue. Fernando Martinez is a senior structural engineer at Douglas Wood Associates in Miami. He received his BS and MS degrees in civil engineering from Florida Atlantic University. In 2016, Fernando was awarded an SEI Young Professional Scholarship to attend Structures Congress, and this started his involvement with the Institute by joining the SEI Young Professionals Committee. One of his first tasks on that committee was to serve as the liaison with the then newly formed Global Activities Division of SEI. He currently serves as the chair of the Young Professionals Committee and vice chair of the SEI Global Activities Division Executive Committee. Cherylyn and Fernando will each spend a few minutes sharing their own career story, including successes and challenges, and then I invite you to join the discussion. So welcome, Cherylyn and Fernando, and thank you for joining us today. We're so pleased to have you. Cherylyn, why don't you go first?
Thank you so much, Glenn, and thank you to SEI for inviting me to share my background, experiences, and tips with you today. It's a lot to say in just a few minutes, so please feel free to reach out with any questions that we may not have time to address here. I'll start by saying that my path to structural engineering was not what you would consider typical. I grew up in the Chicago suburbs and was immersed in the fine arts early on. In 7th grade, I started learning the clarinet. By the time I graduated from high school, I just knew I was destined to be a principal clarinetist with a major symphony orchestra, somewhere in Europe, of course. I was off to attend the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign on a music performance scholarship, thinking I had my whole life planned out. Then, after studying music for 3 semesters, I started to wonder if music would really be my lifelong profession. I absolutely loved playing and performing, but I kept thinking that there were other opportunities I needed to explore. My reasoning was that I could continue to play my instruments while pursuing something new. From an early age, I was obsessed with Legos. I was given my first set when I was 3 or 4, and there was no turning back. I started sketching floor plans when I was in middle school, but never really thought much of it until college. I was fortunate in that Illinois has a fantastic architecture program. I researched the curriculum, understood that it would take me a year to finish my undergrad degree, or an additional year rather, and transferred after my sophomore year. Goethe said architecture is frozen music, right? A year later, I was given the incredible opportunity to participate in a study abroad program, which involved a year at the School of Architecture in Versailles. Our studies included crash courses in the French language, architectural history and seminars, and the usual late nights and all-nighters in design studio. It was one of the most memorable experiences in my life, and I would strongly encourage anyone still pursuing a degree to explore study abroad and foreign internship programs. Not only was this particular year memorable because, well, it's living a year in Versailles, but it was where I realized I wanted to be a structural engineer. The architecture program at Illinois is somewhat unique in that the courses include statics, dynamics, mechanics of materials, among others, which are not typically part of an architecture program. It was the analytical side of architecture, or so how it felt. Learning to fit the mathematical pieces of a design puzzle together, I was hooked. I stayed on at Illinois to complete a Master of Architecture in the Structures program. The 2-year curriculum was designed so that its graduates could become licensed architects and licensed structural engineers. It was the ideal situation for me if I had stayed in the Chicago area, but shortly after graduation, I decided to hightail it for warmer weather and found my first employment out of school with a structural engineering firm in Phoenix. I was beginning my career and I thought I was leaving my life as a student behind. Then I started researching when to apply for the PE exam and looking ahead, how to obtain reciprocity with other states. Aside from a very select few states, Arizona included, an ABET accredited engineering degree was required to obtain a PE license. Even though the majority of my master's degree classes were engineering classes, my degree was accredited through NCARB, the architectural equivalent to ABET. So I decided I'd better go back to school for the degree that would allow me the flexibility to pursue my career wherever I wanted. I began taking classes at Arizona State in addition to working full-time. My semesters ranged anywhere from 3 credit hours to 12. It was an incredibly busy 6.5 years, but it was well worth it, and I knew it was the right decision for my career. And because the Arizona board accepted my engineering courses from Illinois, I was also able to become a PE before completing my BSCE. When I moved to Phoenix, I became involved in ASCE and started attending monthly YMF meetings. And when I started classes at ASU, I joined the student chapter, rotated through the officer positions, and became involved in Concrete Canoe. 360-ish credit hours, 365-ish credit hours later, I was truly ready to hang up my mortarboard. I had made many friends and connections through ASCE, and this is how I was introduced to SEI. At the 2010 ASCE National Conference, I met those working to get the SEI Young Professionals Committee off the ground. I became the first secretary of the group, setting the stage for becoming much more involved in SEI. I participated in the local leaders conference, served on the board of governors committees, including the vision committee, responsible for developing a vision for the future of structural engineering and structural engineers, a case for change, and the subsequent confirmation paper. I'm a voting member of the ASCE 7 main committee and serve as the vice chair of the Winload subcommittee. You may be starting to wonder what I'm doing with my career aside from being a professional student. I've had a few different roles in structural engineering, from an EIT working on the Phoenix Airport expansion project with KPFF to a PE assisting in the design of the Cinta Costera Viaduct project, a 56-span post-tension I-girder twin roadway and pedestrian bridge with TY Lin. While staying busy at work, I still stayed busy in professional societies. The bridge photo is of the Cinta Costera Viaduct, and the group photo is the Young Professional Scholarship winners of the 2014 Structures Congress in Boston. A few years ago, I was presented with a new opportunity in North Carolina. It would lead me back to the world of structures, building structures, and a bit closer to home. I currently lead the structures group at Zapata, an AE firm in Charlotte. I've worked on projects large and small in the Southeast, the US Virgin Islands, and in Puerto Rico. The foursome in the safety vest is a work photo from a project site in Puerto Rico, and the next photo to the right is the SEI Runners Group at the 2019 Structures Congress in Orlando. The group photo with a large SEI banner is from the 2019 CSAD Lecture Series, where local SEI chapters and grad student chapters competed for ASCE 7 guest speakers. The tropical photo on the top right corner is from a 2017 ASCE SEI Hurricane Irma investigation in St. Thomas. Upon moving to North Carolina, I discovered that the state was putting together its structure specialist team. Structure specialists serve on federal and state teams as part of urban search and rescue task forces. They respond to local and national incidents, natural and man-made disasters. This role flips traditional structural engineering on its head. In a deployment situation, you don't have time to run models or pop into EnterCalc. You have to make decisions on the fly in order to accomplish the mission. In the case of the structure specialist, that mission is victim rescue or recovery after structural collapse. In the photo on the left, I'm in a typical response gear and just given a presentation to my office after a local incident response. The center four photos are from a deployment to the North Carolina coast during Hurricane Florence in 2018. We traveled by Chinook to the staging site and prepared to respond to structural collapse. The photo in the top right is from a local incident last summer where a house collapsed after an explosion from a natural gas leak. Being where I am today, my tips for you are, don't be afraid to try a new path. Be open to new or previously unconsidered options. What's the harm in taking that unexpected interview? Worst case scenario is you'll learn about a new opportunity, learn more about yourself, and gain practice interviewing. The best case scenario is you'll discover that the position is a fantastic fit and you're offered the job. It's happened to me. Be confident and think positively. If you believe in yourself, others will too. Do your research. Finding the right company and best fit opportunity can be challenging. Explore all of your options. Have a LinkedIn profile. Talk to fellow students and young professionals about their experiences in looking for their best fit. When you interview, be prepared. Know the company and try to learn part of their culture from their website. Ask questions, ask to be shown around the office. It's not just about the work you'll be performing, but the colleagues you'll be working with. And don't forget to write a thank you note. Get involved and network. Your professional network is a complement to your technical training and skills. Being able to communicate with your clients and colleagues verbally and through writing is just as important as knowing how to determine load paths. Ask questions. Starting your first job after college might feel daunting and overwhelming, and you don't know what you don't know. You learn a lot in school, but it's just the tip of the iceberg. Remember, every other engineer in your office has been in your shoes. Ask away. Seek out a mentor. Find someone in your firm, a professor, or someone through a professional organization. Mentors can provide advice when you're searching for your first job. Be the sounding board for the inevitable question of, do I accept this offer at a new company? And help you guide through the profession. They can even become lifelong friends. Find new learning environments. The majority of learning is done outside of the classroom. Find webinars, talk to your coworkers, attend local society meetings, and read journal articles. Broaden your knowledge. This will help you prepare for the PE and SC exams and beyond. Side note, I would recommend that you sit for your exams as soon as you are eligible. Join a committee. SEI and other professional groups have numerous committees that focus on everything from technical standards to licensure to local leadership. These committees would very much like to have younger member involvement. Apply for young professional and student scholarships to attend Structures Congress. The SEI Futures Fund generously offers these scholarships, and the program has grown so much since the first scholarships were offered. In 2012, there were 8 young professional scholarships to attend Structures Congress. This year, there were 25 YP scholarships and 40 student scholarships. I would encourage everyone to take the advantage of this opportunity. Make your mark, stand out, go the extra mile, be the exception. Don't go to work because it's your job. Own your career, be your own advocate, and you'll have a successful and fulfilling career in structural engineering. I hope that my experience shows you that you don't have to be a traditional student to pursue what you want. And sometimes it turns out that you can have your cake and eat it too. The photo of me with my clarinet is actually from a 2017 performance with the Charlotte Symphony, a yearly event where amateur community musicians like me join the professionals on stage for an evening performance. We're here today because structural engineering is our passion, and it's only the fortunate few who can make a living doing something they love.
Oh, Cherylyn, fantastic. What an inspiring path. And I'm sure that diversity of experience along the way is one of your strengths moving forward. And it's great that you still are able to pursue your passion for music. But once you settled on your goal, it was clear you pursued it really with a passion, and you have a plan and you have the ambition to do it. I'm most impressed at your pursuing a second bachelor's degree when you determined it became necessary to become a PE. So good for you. Thank you so much. And now we'll hear from Fernando.
Good afternoon. I'm pleased to be here with you all today. I will share my experience of how I first started my career. I did my bachelor's and master's in civil engineering. I did my master's with a structural focus right after finishing my bachelor's degree. It took me about 1.5 years to complete. When I was in my junior year, my university was promoting research grants for undergraduate students in an effort to encourage them to continue their research into graduate school. And that was exactly what I did. My research was focused on the fire resistance of structural corroded concrete, which I continued into my master's. As you start out, the company selection will be one of the most important decisions. When I was a freshman in college, I searched.
Things so Pat could hear us.
Excuse me?
But you use Teams, right?
Okay. When I was a freshman in college, I searched on Google best structural engineering companies to work for in South Florida, and my current employer popped up first in the search results because of some employer awards they had received. During my last semester of graduate school, I sent them an email indicating that I was interested in working with them, and they called me in for an interview. I believe the culture of a company will influence the long-term development of the entry-level engineer. My advice to the attendees is to investigate the company thoroughly and ask questions during the interview, such as how important is continuing education for them, etc. I am very lucky to be with a company that has a culture that is compatible with my career development goals. I started working at Douglas Wood Associates in 2015 as an EI. Our work includes all types of new construction and adaptation of existing buildings, structural peer reviews and assessments, and restoration of historic buildings in the Florida market. I obtained my PE registration in December of 2019. As we all know, each company has its own dynamics and MO. So when you are first in your first job, try to familiarize yourself with this rapidly. Efficiency translates into profits, which is a very important factor for any business. A mentor can help you determine what is the best and quickest path for you to achieve your professional goals. I was lucky enough to have found my master's thesis advisor in college, who has been providing me with valuable advice since my undergraduate years. We have gone through conferences together and discussed the state of the profession frequently. I believe school is a great period to find a mentor, given the context of the formative years. However, your employer or organization would also provide great context for a mentor-mentee relationship to be developed. Membership in a professional engineering organization will enrich your life, as it will provide another perspective for the profession, from your job. Whether it is for technical matters or managerial aspects, it will expand your breadth of knowledge. I started my development with SEI when, as Glenn said, when I was awarded the scholarship to attend the Structures Congress. And now I have an active involvement within different committees, such as the Young Professionals Committee, where I'm the chair, and I'll be speaking about an initiative that we took related to challenges for young professionals in a bit. And I'm also the vice chair for the Global Activities Division Executive Committee. Now, I will now share my experience as it relates to starting out from an engineering technical perspective. For me, it is important to plan your work schedule as much as you can, because that will influence, for example, budget considerations. For example, I create calendar blocks of specific tasks that I plan to work on for a project. So as try to be as efficient as possible. What I typically do is take the fee for a project and divide it by my billable rate. And so that I can get an idea of the amount of time that it should take me to complete a particular task. Keep in mind that your supervisor will likely need to review the project as well. So you should take his or her time into account as well as you work out, how long a task should take. Especially when you are starting out, I recommend that you review your work constantly with your supervisor as you go through different phases of the project to make sure that you're meeting expectations. It may be awkward in some settings, especially when you work for smaller companies that don't have established mentorship program, but communication is key within a company and for the organization to meet the client demands. One thing I do recommend is that you do your due diligence before asking a question. Make sure that that you really need to ask it. When drafting structural details, make sure the drawings show a clear load path. I have been involved in structural peer reviews in the last few years and have observed that in many instances, particularly in adaptations of existing buildings, engineers may not fully understand the development of the loads due to a lack of detailed construction documents that give them a full picture of the condition. For example, torsion on a beam. Never throw in a typical detail in the drawings for the sake of it, as it can create conflicts and be costly and time consuming during the construction stage of the project. Depending on the type and size of your company, you may be in direct communication with the client. Remember that written communication is very important. It is a firm record. It could be discerned during a legal procedure. I always put thought into what I write into an email, even if it's internal within my company, because that stays there. Quality of customer service for me is very important for long-term success. What I try to do is to make my clients feel that their projects are my top priority. I recommend that you follow up on open issues. Don't always wait for them to reach out to you. Reach out to them, show the initiative. There is no better compliment than the next project. During my involvement with the Young Professionals Committee of SEI, I developed a survey in conjunction with the ISRT Younger Members Panel. That's a structural engineering organization based in the UK. To survey the challenge of young professionals around the world as self-reported. As you can see in this figure, there is the world distribution of the responses. We received around 600 responses in total, mostly from the UK and the US, but we did receive some scattered around the world. Here you can see this general survey structure. So basically, we had 3 legs for the survey, depending on your activities. One of the themes was to capture that international work MO for people involved in working on projects outside of their country of residence. So we had a leg just for that. We also had a leg for local work for people that only did work in their country of residence. And for both, we asked questions such as licensure, challenges, with coordination with other consultants, and the proficiency with software. And then we had the academics leg, for which we asked specific research-related questions for the academics, as well as the relationships to the students of the profession. Just so that you can get an overall idea of the demographics of the respondents, about 71% male compared to about 31%, 29% female. You can see an even distribution around the young professional age spectrum from 25 to 35. So we did get a good flavor of the different, all the spectrum. One question that we asked was about satisfaction with the profession. And we found that 70% reported to be satisfied with the choice of structural engineering. But then this high percentage doesn't stay on when you ask them about career advancement. Only 54% reported to be satisfied with their career advancement to date. Sizes of companies, you can see an even distribution, different sizes, and I'll go into that in a bit. So the role of the young professionals as self-reported, mostly staff engineering and project manager, as one would expect. And one question that we did ask, and that I was curious about, if the young professionals thought that the industry made efficient use of today's technology, speed of communication. And the majority said yes. And that was very surprising for me. And those that said no, they gave different reasons. Among more collaboration up front should be needed, taking more advantage of the BEAM concept. And that was one of the challenges, as they self-reported, as you can see at the bottom of the slide. A lot of these young professionals, they would like to get more training in BEAM concepts within their company, which was very interesting. And just to conclude, mentorship was a big issue that we observed, particularly female young engineers. A lot of them indicated that they didn't have a way to find a mentor. It wasn't clear to them how. Communication, business skills, interactions with other consultants and clients, field experience, and the monotonous assignments for large companies was very common. Young professionals that feel they don't get exposed to different areas of the profession just because they're doing one item that they're good at. Thank you.
Fernando, thank you very much. A great career path, and clearly you have had the benefit, as you said, of being fortunate to join a company where your interests align with the company's interests. So good for you. I'm sure our participants are going to want to drill down on some of those survey questions because I know from experience many of the issues like mentoring and type of work and growth paths are of interest. So we have a lot of questions coming in here. So let's get started with those. This first one can be directed to either or both of you. I invite you both to answer. This is from Daniel Schroeder. Hi, Danny. Thank you for joining us and for your question. Danny asks, what advice do you have for someone who is gearing up to take the PE next year?
I can take that first. So I would recommend taking a review course, either online. When I was studying for the exam, I took an in-person one through the local ASCE chapter, and it was very helpful just to go through what other people had experienced, and then do a lot of practice problems. And set aside maybe 3 or 4 hours at a time to study, whether it's a few times a week or however your schedule will allow. I would recommend those things.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. My main recommendation would be to take advantage of the practice problems that NCEES sells for the PE, the structural portion, but also they sell for the SE exam booklet of practice problems, and they're very similar. So you get a lot of exercises, and just you get in tune with the rhythm of the exam, which is, I think, is mostly more than a knowledge exam. It's a test-taking venture. So that gives you a lot of experience.
Mm-hmm. Here's a follow-up. I have a couple follow-up questions for both of you. I wonder the extent to which each of you found your experience leading up to the PE useful in taking the exam. Did you seek out with your supervisor specific experience that you thought would be helpful for the exam, or did you really feel like you needed to get most of your learning from refresher courses and self-study? Well,
in my case, since I took the PE civil structural, so a lot of the first half of the exam is all the disciplines of civil engineering. So I had to go back and review what I had learned in college. Mm-hmm. So I think it really takes going back and learning.
Very
but
good.
For the structural portion, a lot of what I do helped, definitely.
I would agree with what Fernando said. In my experience, the afternoon questions, I had done a lot of that already in my career to date, but it was going back to the morning questions, environmental. When I took it, I hadn't even had some of those classes yet, like transportation. So taking those review classes was really helpful. And like Fernando mentioned, doing the practice problems, some of them were almost identical to what were the practice problems. So. Okay,
great. And each of you, did you take the civil PE exam or the structural PE exam?
I took the civil structural.
The civil structural, okay. Right.
The same.
You too, Cherylyn? Very good. Here is sort of another related question. You both have master's degrees. What's your view on, if you want to be a structural engineer in industry or consulting, the necessity of a master's degree? Why did you pursue a master's, and would it be your advice for most or any structural engineering consulting to have a master's degree?
I would highly recommend pursuing a master's degree for a couple of different reasons. The undergraduate curriculum doesn't allow for enough time to really dive in deeply into the structural engineering courses. If you look back at curriculum back in the 1950s and 60s, those engineering degrees were roughly 150 to 160 credit hours. If you look at today's degree programs, they're roughly 120 to 130. So you just don't have the opportunity to really take those classes that will help you become more successful as a structural engineer. And you really need that technical base to be successful. A lot of curriculums that I've seen, for an undergrad program, they don't even require you to take concrete and steel classes, for example. So I would highly recommend pursuing an advanced degree in structural engineering.
Okay, thank you. Fernando?
I agree. I think that the undergraduate level, at least in civil engineering, it gives you a flavor into different disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
It may vary if you have a bachelor's with a focus on structural, which I know some universities do. But if you have a general civil bachelor's, my recommendation is going to the master's program, get a lot of courses focused on structure, which will be very helpful during your career.
Okay. And one other follow-up question. Any thoughts about whether it's desirable to enter a master's program immediately after finishing your bachelor's, or would you recommend getting some experience first? Or what about an option of getting a degree while you're working? Cherylyn, you did your master's degree while you were working. So there's a lot of questions embedded in that I'll throw out to both of you.
So yes, I would recommend pursuing your master's directly upon finishing your undergraduate degree if you can. I would also recommend getting an internship at the same time so you can gain some of that real life work experience, whether it's just a few hours a week or something over the summer. I will say that working while going to school is quite difficult, and it can be challenging. So if you're able to pursue your graduate degree just after you complete your undergrad degree.
Okay. Yep.
Right. I agree. And I carried out my master's right after the bachelor, so I wasn't working while I was doing my master's. And I think it's about, for me, focus, right? If I was working full time, I'm not sure how I would be able to focus on both getting a head start on my career and making sure I do well on my courses and, take advantage of that university experience to expand my knowledge. So if you have the opportunity, I would recommend that you don't do both at the same time.
Okay, very good. Good advice. Thank you. Cherylyn, I think this is comment on the relation.
Looks like we're having some technical issues here with Glenn. Let's just give him a couple more seconds to see if he pops back on here.
I think you might be frozen. I'm not hearing you.
Glenn, could you repeat the question?
Yes. Cherylyn, could
I have a feeling I know what question he's going to ask, and
I think so too.
yeah.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you, yes.
Yeah, okay. Did you hear the question, or should I repeat it?
No, it cut out again.
Oh, I see. Okay, I'm sorry. We did have one structural engineer write in who's a pianist. You two will have to go through some of the finer points of composition, probably offline, but could you comment, Cherylyn, on the relationship between art/music and engineering? Do you make those connections in your everyday job?
Yes, actually. They say that those who are good in music are talented in math as well, and it makes sense if you look at compositions and all of the different runs of notes, for example. And a lot of it is still being creative, finding creative solutions in engineering, and then playing creatively, either on piano or clarinet or whatever your instrument is. So I see the relation between engineering, architecture, music. It all goes hand in hand.
Okay, great. Fernando, do you have any connection with music that you'd like to respond with?
Not particularly. I do appreciate it.
Yeah, very good. Let's move on to a different theme then. And this is we have people looking for advice on student graduates looking to start in a new company. How do you decide which company to work for if it's your first time working in a structural design company? What advice?
I would say do your research on the company, talk to as many people as you can who you're familiar with within that company, whether it be friends or colleagues or people that you know have worked there in the past. Take a look at their website and become familiar with their projects, their company culture. I had mentioned that it's not just about the kind of work that you'll be doing, but it's also who you're going to be working with, and you have to be able to fit in both ways. Otherwise, you're not going to truly enjoy what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then talk to your family and see what their experiences are. It's not just a question that's limited to engineering. Everybody goes through this, and they might have some helpful advice as well.
Right.
Right, I agree. I think you should do a thorough research, and the size of the company will play an effect on the kind of activities you get starting out. And some of them have established mentorship programs, some of the largest companies, which may be beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
So, go to the career first at the universities, speak to them, and try to learn as much as you can. And when you go in for an interview, ask questions. I think that's liked by interviewers. Get to know, ask questions. Don't be only receiving the questions, ask them as well.
Very good. Thank you. We have some questions now back on the PE subject, and this is around SEs. Do you see a PE requirement being sufficient in most states for a foreseeable future, or do you see more states moving towards SE licensure, and therefore is that going to be in greater demand in the future? What are your thoughts on SE licensure?
So I would encourage it if whenever you're eligible to take the exam and become an SE. There are states that do require an SE to practice engineering for certain types of structures. California, Illinois, Washington, for example. Some states don't recognize the SE, but I do think that in the future they will all move in that direction.
Very good.
Right, I agree. And for example, in Florida, it has been tried, and they're trying again, the legislature, the Board of Engineering here, to get the SC licensure approved. And I think that the process of going through that exam, to studying for that exam, it would really enrich your structural engineering knowledge, even if you don't pass it the first time. So that's something that's definitely on my agenda, to take that exam. And I have all the prep material. It's great.
Great.
Right.
Very good. Do both of you, this is a follow-on question, do both of you tend to do projects in or around your home states, or do they vary throughout the?
In my case, we are a local firm, so most of our projects are in the Miami area. We do have some other projects in South Florida and other cities, but most of them are in Miami.
The majority of ours are in the Southeast. Yep. Because we're based in Charlotte, but we do have work in all of the surrounding states. And then we've had work in Alaska, Colorado, and also the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico.
Very good. Fernando?
Yes, most of our work is local, so we're mostly in Miami. We do have some work in other cities of Florida, smaller percentage.
I heard recently that Georgia is about to adopt SE licensure, Fernando, so it's coming close to you.
Yeah. We're next.
There we go. Another of our participants wants to know how you decided to move to another state for better opportunities. Was that a difficult decision for you? Do you think it was an important decision to cast a broader net?
I think so. I think you need to.
Go ahead, Cherylyn.
Sorry, Glenn. I think at certain points in your career, once you reach that project engineer stage, just kind of sit back and evaluate where you are. Is this the right fit? Am I doing the right type of work that I want to do? Do I need a change of scenery, for example? And just start exploring. you're completely happy with your career path and your trajectory and what you're doing, then there's no need to move. But if you think that you might have a better experience or opportunity, and you may not have what your current role is, you may not be dissatisfied with it, but if there's another opportunity that pops up, take full advantage and explore it. You may not end up taking it, but I would recommend looking into it. It would do no harm.
Very good. Thank you. Fernando, you seem to have stayed in Florida for your career, but do you have any thoughts about, did you entertain moving to another state?
No, I haven't. Since, when I first started college, I thought of working in Miami. I used to live in Boca Raton. Mm-hmm. That's where I went to school. So Miami is where the bigger market is. Yeah. So I haven't thought about it, to be frank, but yeah. We'll see what life brings on.
Very good. Let's talk a little bit about mentorship. There are several questions about mentorship that I'm going to try to work through without giving you all of them literally. But Cherylyn, you talked a bit about having a mentor through school. Any advice about how to find a mentor and what a good mentoring relationship looks like? You both can take that question.
So I would find somebody who is compatible with you first on a personal level. Mm-hmm. Obviously somebody in your profession who can help guide you through the industry when you're first starting out, and you can ask these kinds of technical questions because they're the experienced person. But if you're still a student, somebody who's a professor or even a grad student who you look up to, if you're doing an internship, somebody in that role, or if you're involved in ASCE when you graduate and you're involved in the younger member forum, or if there's a local SEI chapter, just get out there and talk to people and introduce yourself. Don't be afraid to talk to people. Everybody's been in your situation, and you'd be surprised at how many people are actually willing to reciprocate that relationship if you initiate it.
Right. I agree. I think that you need to locate someone that has the kind of experience or background that you hope to one day get. In my case, it was very early on when I was an undergraduate student. I met my professor who introduced me to this research in concrete. We went to an SEI conference together. So today I talk often on a weekly basis with this professor, and we discuss the state of the industry. And I think it wouldn't have been the same if I hadn't met my professor, who is my mentor, sort of. Mm-hmm. So it really enriches you.
Good. Very good.
Right.
Both of you, have you had different mentors at different stages of your careers?
In my case, it has only been this university professor. Mm-hmm. I've only had 5 years of experience. Yep. Yeah.
I've had several, yes. I had one in grad school who was fantastic and helped guide me through making the decision to move and different career opportunities to pursue. And then once I became more involved in ASCE and SEI, I met several people who sort of took me under their wing. And so I've been able to find mentors through professional societies as well. And then of course, my boss at work is also a fantastic mentor.
Great. And a follow-on question for you, Cherylyn. I saw from your background that you did some work for T.Y. Lin, mostly in the bridge area, and it seems like you're focused more on buildings today at Zapata. Was that an intentional career move to move from bridges to buildings, or was it more a choice of firms? And was there a mentor involved in helping you make that transition?
So yes, and yes. Okay. So when I first started out my career, I was doing building structures, and I did buildings for a few years and then transitioned into bridges. Yep. There are a lot of bridge companies in Phoenix. So it was fairly a straightforward decision to sample a new type of structural engineering, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I really loved working in bridges. but I also miss doing building design. And so when this opportunity in North Carolina arose, I spoke with my mentors, talked with my family, and it just made sense. The firm is fantastic, and it's one of the best decisions I've made for my career.
Being a mentor, how can more experienced engineers help newer engineers transition effectively into the industry, into the profession? And what stage of experience do you think you need to be a mentor, and how can we help newer engineers transition?
Well, I think that you can start being a mentor, once you have a few years of experience. Start with the entry-level engineers, and I think just getting them to the rhythm of the office, right? Of what you're supposed to do, how to follow up with clients. So I think that there is a lot that you could teach after you have a few years of experience.
Yeah, I would agree with Fernando. I don't think you need a whole lot of design and technical experience necessarily under your belt, because you've just gone through finding your first position and learning what it's like to work full-time in a firm, and you can share that immediately with junior engineers who are just looking to transfer from, say, graduate school into your firm, for example.
Okay, very good. Here's a couple of questions on a different theme. What do you think are the important soft skills that managers are looking for? And in that regard, what are those skills that will set apart one junior engineer from the others in terms of, as this questioner said, becoming an indispensable employee?
So I think first and foremost, you need to be personable. You need to be able to communicate with people, verbally, written. People like working with people who they like. So if you're a likable person, that will make you, I don't know if indispensable is the right word, but it'll give you a leg up. And being able to write professional emails. Fernando mentioned he's always cognizant about what he's writing, and I think that's a fantastic point. Make sure that your correspondence, even if it's just notes to a colleague, make sure they're well thought out and well written, and be able to communicate your ideas with your colleagues, with your boss, with your clients. That's the way you win work, that's the way you keep clients, and that's the way everybody stays happy. So
very good, thank you.
I agree. I think also the attention to detail. Once you're given an assignment, make sure that you're looking at the whole, all of, in a holistic way, and are able to solve the problem. Like, always try to follow up and be very keen to the details.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. And how can you learn some of these soft skills once you're out of school and in practice? Where do you go for that kind of experience and skill building?
I would recommend going to society meetings, because at least in the YMF meetings that I participated in Phoenix, the first half hour was networking. So you went around and you spoke to different people, you learned about different organizations, different companies, different roles that people had, and just getting out there and practicing talking to people and meeting new people. I think that's a great start.
Yeah, great, good.
Right, involvement with professional organizations, I think will help you there. Activities such as these, presentations, all these kinds of will enrich your ability of, for these soft skills, definitely.
Very good.
Yeah.
And I think we have time for one more question. And I'm going to generalize this a little bit, but it deals with the future of driving towards net zero emitted carbon. What do you see as are some of the techniques for the future of that? For example, this person is asking, is precast concrete going to be more desirable than reinforced concrete, or are we going to see more wood?
Glenn, could you repeat the second part of your question?
I'm sorry, it related to moving towards net zero emissions, and how will our work be differently? What sort of things will we see we be doing differently than we are today?
Oh, sorry, Fernando.
Go ahead.
You had mentioned precast initially, and that might be, I can see we're in our practice, we're actually using a bit more precast than we were when I first got out of school, but I think it depends on the region.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on your clients.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of government clients, and so they dictate what they want more often than not. So, but I think certainly sustainable materials are going to be very, very important in the future. I don't know so much about returning to wood bridges, I think is what part of the question was,
Yep.
just in terms of design practicality.
Very good, thank you.
Right. Also, I think I've heard a lot about geopolymer concrete and how it's it may be a promising alternative to regular concrete. And I know in some countries it has already been adopted in the industry, such as Australia. So that might take us there. Also, I think more client awareness, at least from our side. Mm-hmm. I recently attended the SEI Sustainability Committee meeting, and they highlighted how difficult it was to communicate to the client why to care about this issue. Right. So I think that we'll have to be those those individuals that are the messengers, and explain the benefits to the architects and to the owners.
Right.
Yeah.
So this goes to some of the soft skills, communication and persuasion
right.
we talked about earlier, doesn't it? Sort of highlighting those things.
Right.
Very good. Okay. I think that's all the time that we have for today. There should be an exit poll launched. There it is. Appreciate that very much. Thank you, Cherylyn and Fernando, and to all our participants. And we hope you enjoyed this session on Career Path Series. There will be the resources posted along with a video recording of today's session. That's going to be available on Collaborate for SEI and ASCE member access. I also invite you please to participate in this exit survey so we can capture your feedback and follow up with any questions that haven't yet been answered. And please join us on the next session, session 3 on September 22nd, when we'll be discussing advancing, and that will take the stage of project engineer to project manager. And our guests for that will be Emily Guglielmo and Victor Van Santen. So Cherylyn, Fernando, any parting thoughts for our participants?
I would say just take charge of your career, grow your network, develop your soft skills, and have fun. It's your profession, and do with it what you want.
Very good.
Right. In my case, I would say finding a mentor would really benefit you, and be proactive about choosing which company you work for. Make sure you do a lot of research. Right.
Great advice. Thank you so much for participating with us today and lending your wisdom to the group. And thank for all of you for some really great questions. Look forward to seeing you September 22nd for the next session.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.